We are in the capital of marketing and communication, not just for Italy, but for Europe also. And I'm very pleased to share this talk with one of the greatest persons that we have in Italian wine industry, Giovanni Geddes Da Filicaja. Welcome. And I will have a seat because we have also another guest, Kristen Reitzell, Vice President of Public Relations at Jackson Family Wineries. Is Kristen online?
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Okay. Hi, Kristen. Welcome to Milan. Welcome to Milan Wine Week and to the Wine Generation Forum.
I'm happy to be here.
Mr. Geddes, you are a protagonist of the wine industry with Ornellaia. And a simple question to begin, just to break the ice. But what is the success of Ornellaia? The secret of success of Ornellaia, of course.
Well, there are no secrets. I mean, the secret is, is it on? It's on.
Yeah.
Yep, it's on. The secret is to try and produce the best possible wine that you can produce in that area. And that's one of the areas where the wines have become known, but not for a very long time. The very beginning of the Bulgari area was in '68, and we started planting in 1981. The first vintage was '85. The first recognition we really had was the Wine Spectator. We were the #1 wine in 1998, vintage in 98, in 2001. The first 100 points was in 2001. And then we've done a lot of things. For instance, we have defined some of our wines up to vintage 2006 to be archivio storico, historical archive of up to vintage 2006, and we're thinking of declaring archivio storico up to 2010 probably by next year, 2021.
Yeah.
So the focus is absolute quality. But when I say absolute quality, I mean, first of all, the quality of the wine, so the quality of the vineyards and the quality of the wine, but the quality of everything we do.
Yeah.
So
of the communication and marketing strategy.
Well, obviously, obviously the packaging, absolute attention to details, and communication, no doubt, yeah.
Okay. So, Kristen, tell us something about, first of all, the group, the Jackson Family Wineries, and also to you, I ask, what is the secret of the success of your brands?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me here. I'm thrilled to be speaking on this topic. I've dedicated my career to it, but also to be alongside such an icon with Giovanni and the Ornellaia estate, so it's a privilege. So Jackson Family, we're much younger in the United States. Jackson Family Wines was founded in 1982 by Jess Jackson, so we were part of that second wave of heritage wineries, and through his foresight, really building wines that had something special, offered something that was very site-driven, very terroir-driven, and very specific to the land. He purchased vineyards in the 70s and really launched what is now Kendall Jackson, which is become the #1 selling wine in America for the past 28 years in a row. So creating that trust and that integrity behind not just one label, but then expanding that really to our entire portfolio, which today includes over 40 wineries and vineyards across the globe. In California, which is where we're based and where I am today in Sonoma County. I'd much rather be in Italy sitting with you today, but such is the situation we're in. But we have wineries in Oregon, we're in South Africa, we've expanded recently and more into Australia, we're in Italy as well, only for a few decades, and then also Bordeaux and Chile. So one of the things that we always talk about is quality. Jess never compromised on that. And it was always something that he never allowed the marketing and communications professionals to interfere with. It's not what leads us, it's what we have to work with. And I think that's really important. In addition to that, we're still family-led, we're family-owned. We have huge representation by a large family of Jacksons. Barbara Banke is our current chairwoman, and she runs the company since Jess's passing in 2011. And all of the second and third generation are involved in the business. But ultimately, that family ethos of quality is really tied back to the land. And so land is really where we got our start when Jess first purchased vineyards up in Lake and Sonoma County back in the 70s. And it's really what's guided us today. We don't explore into territories until we feel like we've really found a piece of land or a site or a vineyard that will create the best expression that we can from that site. And ultimately, sustainability is a huge pillar of ours. And we worked really hard to ensure that as a multi-generational company, we are leaving what we have now in a better place for the generations to come. And part of that is not only leading from a company perspective with our sustainability efforts, but that's looking at our people and social responsibility. Obviously, empowering women is a big part of that, empowering diverse voices. We have extremely aggressive carbon goals where we want to become carbon neutral over the next couple decades. And then also we are looking a lot at our water supply, which is extremely important around the world, but also particularly in California and regions like Australia. And finally, working with industry partners. I think everyone may or may not be aware, but I have to mention the International Wineries for Climate Action, which is an organization we started with the Torres family of Spain. We launched it a few years ago, and it's essentially an industry collective to reduce carbon emissions by 100% by 2045. So I know there's a lot of winery professionals in the room, and if you're interested in that, I implore you all to, look up International Wineries for Climate Action, because we can't do it alone, and I think it's an industry-wide effort from a sustainability perspective. But those are the things that lead us, and I think those are the things that keep us successful and have maintained that success, from Kendall Jackson being the #1 for the last 28 years to having wineries like La Jolla and Verite on the high end that continue to garner 100-point scores and showcase that smaller boutique luxury portfolio that we have as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Kristen. Especially in these very strange times, Mr. Geddes.
Yeah.
What is the perfect blend to combine something, when we think about the highest wines, we talk about something which is artisanal, traditional. How is it possible to make the perfect blend with innovation? Because right now we need so much innovation in production, innovation in marketing, innovation in communication. What is the perfect blend?
Well, it's a blend of everything. It's a blend of all the things you said. But let's start by the communication. We started by presenting the first wine in 1985. And everything started there. So at the top of the pyramid was Ornellaia, and then the second wine appeared, the Serra Nuova dell'Ornellaia, the Volta dell'Ornellaia. So everything started from the top. If you start from the top, you have a much better chance to be one of the great wines. And all of your wines, we only have 6 wines, but 2 are white, and they're very, very small. 3 reds and 2 whites, basically. Yeah. And we're not intending to expand. We are intending to go to be more thorough and even better in the future. Communication starts from what I said before, total quality, but also how you communicate with all your key people inside first of all, but key people outside, like collectors, like trade, top trade, the wine journalists, very, very important. Ratings have been important now, they're very important, but I mean, you have to continue to have very, very high ratings to be recognized by everybody.
Okay.
So, and communication. I mean, we're using the media, the top media, the top printed media, but we're also using all the social medias.
Okay.
But in a very exclusive way, I would say. We want to control very much what we're doing, and we want to have the understanding of what the consumer thinks of our own wines.
Yes. And how did you face, Mr. Geddes, the pandemic with the communication? I saw some initiatives that you did that were, of course, on the collector's side mainly, because it was just about own consumption. And for you, you know, you have a great marketing restaurants.
90%, because I mean, restaurants have been closed and keep being closed now. Many of the restaurants in Italy have not reopened, especially the small ones.
Yeah.
Now I hear that in New York it's reopened inside, but with 1/4 of the people that could go there before. So I don't know how the economics can actually work in that case. But what we've seen is that we have obviously lost a lot of business in the on-trade, but we have gained a lot of business in the off-trade.
Yeah.
And so I would say not necessarily balance 100%, but very near.
Okay.
And once I mean, this pandemic has finally disappeared, I think we will most probably keep the new customers that we have reached, and go back also to the restaurant business, the HoReCa business. So it's not everything is bad.
It's also an opportunity. You have to know, Mr. Geddes, we had to do the same with our event, with our Milano Wine Week, because we had to change it a lot this year. And of course, there are very many people listening to us and watching us from our digital platform, which is something that we wouldn't do in a regular year, you know?
No.
And it's a great investment.
We don't have to do it all the time. I mean, my last flight from New York was on the 7th of February.
Yeah.
I haven't been flying since then. I mean, going to Zurich a couple of times, but very small and very complicated. They keep on changing the schedules, canceling the flights, and so on. It's extremely complicated.
Extremely complicated.
But we've learned to do things on Zoom, on Teams, and all of the presentations, all of the budgeting, budget reviews we're doing. We do it online. It's on a video conference. And also, the winemakers, we have one person who's responsible for all the production. I mean, he's the director of the estate. So he's an agronomist and an enologist. He's been working with us since 2005. 2005. 16 years now. And he's half German and half French. Studied in Bordeaux, and obviously he speaks German and French, absolutely perfect English, and by now absolutely perfect Italian. So it's got 4 languages you can
Wow.
present. It's
That's
not,
impressive.
Not Chinese yet, not Chinese yet. Anyway.
Kristen, how did you face the COVID emergency? You have brands in many, many countries, as you said before. You have so many different markets and different positionings also. So how did you face all of this? So it was an incredible, incredible thing to manage.
Yeah, so to your point, we have a lot of different markets. We saw a little bit of that disruption early on, just given the strong business we have in the Asian markets. So we were anticipating what could happen if this came to the United States and had the same effect. So we did start strategizing that a little early on, just knowing what we had already faced in other marketplaces. But ultimately, I think that, you know, the family and the executive team, all of us were really proud of just how quickly we pivoted, how quickly we adapted to this new reality and faced those challenges head on, and we're resilient. As you know, COVID has rattled the world, and no one has been unaffected by that. And then, you know, even more recently, we've been battling some devastating wildfires once again in California. So we're used to having to pivot, and we're used to that sort of resiliency in our people, and they once again just proved that. But I think that with what happened to us, you know, to what Giovanni was saying earlier, the traditional channels like print and media and radio and TV, they continue to be very relevant, and there's always going to be an audience for that type of content. And we work very, very hard to ensure that our wines are in front of those influential critics. Scores and ratings continue to be extremely relevant and very important to sales, I think across all wineries and all wine regions. But we've worked really hard, not just during the COVID pandemic, but, you know, working to expand those audiences. We see particularly in a younger consumer and also a younger wine trade professional, like the younger sommeliers, that they're engaging with media and content in such a different way. Whether that be through influencer networks, social media, they're finding their information different ways, they're sharing it different ways. So it's really important, I think, for wineries to embrace that and be really diligent in vetting who those partners are, whether that be someone that's more in the lifestyle of wine, or whether that's a reputable sommelier at a top account in New York City. All of them are engaging in online content, whether it be through education purposes or through their own network of sommeliers. They've all moved to this digital platform, and that was already happening a little bit. And I think then we've all doubled down on it now, because it's the only form of communication at this point is, you know, through those digital channels to connect. But it's created education opportunities. And then I think beyond that, you know, when the restaurant industry shut down, that's half of our business. And so we, to what Giovanni was saying, we also had to pivot, and we moved a little bit more to retail. But we're very grateful for that because we had such strong retail. But at the same time, we also expanded our own e-commerce through direct sales through our websites. We expanded our partnerships with online retailers. And we've also tapped into something we call in the United States, which is the digital shelf, working with partners like Drizzly, which is a US-based company that actually does alcohol delivery. And their business exploded by, I think, 300% within the first couple months of COVID, just because everyone was looking for that easeability to get wine to their doorstep. They were interested in discovery, but they were also really tracking those trusted brands. So that's where Jackson Family really benefited, because we have certain wineries in our portfolio that have been around for 40 years. So from an American perspective, those are actually very well-established brands that have been around for a while in the United States. But ultimately, I think nothing's off the table. I think this has pushed the wine industry in a direction that I hope we continue to embrace. I don't think the wine industry is going to abandon these new communication opportunities. And I don't think that consumers are at all. I think they're going to continue to seek out those educational opportunities online. And they've found this network of people to educate them, to interact with them and engage with them. So I think it's been as positive as it can be in the terms of we've pivoted, we've adjusted, but we're definitely ready for the restaurants to be able to open again. That industry was hit very, very hard We've partnered with a lot of our restaurant partners to try and bring them back, but until they can really open at the capacity they need to continue to operate, it's going to be challenging, not just on them. We're intrinsically tied to their success. Our success is their success. So we're hopeful that we continue to move forward with them.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kristen. Mr. Geddes, I think that what left us this emergency, but we are still in the emergency, in the middle, unfortunately.
Actually,
we're still in the middle of the emergency. But my sensation is that we did so much, and we are in a new age in which the consumer is in the middle, of the attention. It must be the protagonist. He wants to have a bigger interaction with the brands, even with the wine brands. And I know that you're doing so much because you have very, very important customers, and you try to create activities even online for them to increase their knowledge and to give them the possibility to feel in the center,
Yeah. We've done a lot of presentations online, but a lot of tasting as well. So we send the wines to our people, and at a certain particular time, let's say 6 o'clock in the afternoon, so that in America it's about 10 o'clock in the morning, we have the tasting exactly with the same bottles, and everybody, at times we have 15 different groups of people, customers or press, and they bring other people, say 4 or 5 friends each one.
Yeah.
And so we have 50, 60 different people in different locations that are tasting the same wine and are sending chats, or they're sending messages, or they just say, can I ask this question and this other question? So they're very, very interested. There is one good thing, that you can catch at the same time people living in different countries, and so you can spread out far more than you could do if you had to go face by face to each one of those. But obviously, for wine is something which is very social.
Yeah.
So we have lost the restaurants completely. And it will only come back in time, but it will take time. And it will take some big losses for the restaurants. In New York, many of the top restaurants are closing down, and you know that. And it's the same everywhere, because it's tough time.
Yeah.
Very, very tough time.
Very tough time. We tried to find a solution. We organized this year for Milan Wine Week 7 tasting rooms in 7 towns in the world, as you know, Mr. Geddes, and to give them the possibility to have a complete experience, because wine is something social, as you said, and you need to do something new to give the people the possibility to live these experiences, even in a tough moment as the one we're living currently. And what are you doing, Kristen, for these consumer-driven times?
So a lot of similar things that Giovanni mentioned. So we're not stopping with our tastings. We're still continuing to host media and trade tastings, particularly to get our new releases out. We just actually hosted a couple tastings with our winemakers in Napa Valley, with a few of the critics, with Antonio Galloni, as well as critics at the Wine Advocate. So we're not stopping, it's just the format's a little bit different, but we're still able to have that really close interaction and that relationship and that opportunity. But, a couple of things that we've done is, I think we've always seen the opportunity to go somewhere in person and interact with the media. We would always maybe go to New York, and we would have one winemaker with us, and that winemaker would do a tasting. We'd have, 15 to 20 media in the room, but you're geographically a bit limited. And so what we really appreciated, and you try to find the silver linings when you're going through a really tough time, and that's been the opportunity to, what Giovanni said, like we've had the opportunity to do these regional spotlights. Anderson Valley is an emerging it's a Northern California region that I think is getting a lot more attention for its Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And we not only brought in a couple of our wineries, but we partnered with other wineries in that region, did a full virtual educational tasting for media and trade. We had close to 50 attendees all over the world. And if that's just not something you would be able to do, and I don't know pre-COVID if that's something people would have even been comfortable with. They probably would have thought it was a little strange to have a Zoom meeting with all these winemakers. So I like that it's broken down these geographical barriers to bring in other wineries and have more collaborative, more expansive and wide-ranging conversations about a region that isn't so focused just on you. And I think that's what the media are looking for. It's harder for them to attend every tasting when that's just one winery because they have so much on their plate and they're asked to do so much more than they did 10 years ago from a writing. They have to write, they have to blog, they have to be on social media. They're hosting events too. So the more we can make it worthwhile for them, that's been great. But direct-to-consumer, I think, I just want to touch on that quickly. Direct-to-consumer and tasting room visitation is a huge part of our business, particularly in our luxury portfolio. La Jolla, for example, which is one of our high-end wineries in Napa Valley, 80% of that business was direct-to-consumer. So when the wineries are still shut down in California, we can only do outdoor tastings. We can only have a certain level of capacity. We have to obviously follow all of our social distancing and protection protocols. So we're not quite back there. And so what we've done with that business is also pivoted to a bit virtual opportunities. So we're hosting collector tastings. And much like with the media or the trade where they invite a few people they know, collectors do the same. Birds of a feather flock together. So we'll do these collector tastings and then suddenly a collector of ours is like, can I invite 7 of my friends? And they purchase the wine in advance, the winemaker does a tasting, a lot of them know each other, it's fun, it's engaging, and we're not seeing an appetite for that go away at all. So I think we might continue that even when we are able to open fully for tourism again. And I think Lindsay Gallagher with the Napa Valley Vintners spoke to that earlier, is we're all eager to get back to normal, but we're also eager to see what things we've learned that will continue to work for those collectors or those wine consumers that can't all make it out to wine country, which is a reality. They can't all make it out.
Thank you, Kristen. Mr. Geddes, you know that we have a millennial audience because we are the Wine Generation Forum, so this is the second edition of the first forum dedicated to the new wine professionals. What is the relationship between the millennial generation and then exclusive and top quality brand as Ornellaia is?
Well, it's very interesting because the new generations are very, very, very interested in wine. They want to try out all sorts of wines. They want to understand what's behind it. They are nearer to the land than the previous generations, I would say.
Okay.
So they are, even if they cannot afford one bottle, they may take the second wine, or they may share the bottle with 3 friends, and one is buying and the other are paying part of it.
To make it affordable.
Yeah, to make it affordable. So we see, obviously, they haven't got, in many cases, they haven't got the cash for the top wine.
Yes, of course.
But they are interested to know how you produce such a great wine. And that's an interest that in my generation, much fewer people had.
Yeah.
So people are really interested in the brand, why is it what it is, why it's got such a value, but the value is also, and very much, in the image you have created for that wine.
What I think is incredible.
Everything you put together, and all, we started, for instance, with Winter 2006, we started a project which is called VDA, Vendemmia di Artista, a vintage of an artist. And we said, okay, we want to do it on the base of the character of that specific vintage. And the first vintage was the exuberance of 2006, a very exuberant wine. And we will take somebody who can, really produce a fantastic work of art. So a very well-known artist, and the work of art is site-specific and will stay in Ornellaia. We're producing 111 large-sized bottles, 100 double magnums, 10 imperials, and only one Salmanazar. And we sell these bottles. All these bottles are produced with the design of the artist. And that's the number. And we sell them in an auction, always by Sotheby's. And all the proceeds now go to the Guggenheim Museum, also because the Guggenheim Museum has a specific project which is called Mind's Eyes, to teach people that cannot see to understand art. And it's we just finished the second year with an auction of $320,000, which was donated for the Mind's Eyes project of the Peggy Guggenheim Museum. Yeah. And the previous year was almost exactly the same amount of money. And it was an online, in both cases, was an online sales, because we couldn't really do any more the sales on. And I was actually very surprised by the fact that we managed to get almost the same amount of money than the previous year with the COVID. Wow. With the COVID, yeah. And 11 lots, got that. So there is a great interest also putting arts together with wine.
Absolutely.
And since 2012, we have one bottle out of the box of 6 bottles of Ornellaia, which is the central bottle that has the design of the artist.
Okay.
So it goes farther. It goes is not only elitary, but it goes to the consumers and to the trade.
Yeah. I saw. I'm a lucky guy. I saw them, so and I tasted them also. Mr. Geddes, I think that what you said is something very interesting. I see that the importance of the wine brands is increasing lots. I think that some of the most important brands that we have currently in Italy are wine brands. And in the past, there was maybe the fashion system, the fashion industry giving the possibility to the wine brands to share opportunity together. In the past years, I see that is a privilege, even for big brands, to host something done with a partnership with wine brands as Ornellaia especially.
Yes, it is, absolutely, it is. One of the markets which is growing incredibly is China for us. And we started very, very long time ago. But we decided to change distribution in China and the whole of Asia. And we went to the négoce, the Bordelais négoce. And because France has 50% of the Chinese market anyway, and has the top wines. Yeah. So I said, if we go with the same people, we have open doors and they can understand that this is one of the great wines of the world. And they are doing a fantastic job. Obviously, they are fantastic in selling and distribution. You have to do all the backup, which is the communication.
Yeah, of course.
And that's a very important factor.
Kristen, with Jackson family, you are in very different markets. You have brands with a totally different positioning, and it's interesting for us to understand what is the relationship with the new consumers, with the millennial generation especially, and the Z generation. Can you give us an outline of what's happening with the different brands?
Yeah, absolutely. So the one thing I think it's always important to remember is like the brand identity, the way we handle that here at Jackson Family Wines is, you know, each brand is unique. There's not a one size fits all from a marketing or a communications approach. So if we tried to do the same type of marketing for Kendall Jackson that we do for La Jolla or Verite, it would be a disaster.
As separate brands.
So, yeah, you have
which
to
is
keep
totally
it separate.
my philosophy. Totally.
And I think a lot of people look at that and they're like, well, how do you do that? And then we have separate teams with different expertise. We have separate sales teams. We have international teams that handle very specific parts of our portfolio. We work with the negotiants as well with two of our higher end brands that in Europe as well as Asia, and agree, we're seeing amazing opportunities in these markets. But particularly in the US, I would describe the younger consumer as, you know, they're digitally connected, they're hyper informed, they're accessing information from all different areas, and they're evaluating it for themselves. They're looking to their peers, and they really trust their own opinions, and they feel very empowered in those opinions. But they have that brand loyalty just like generations before them did as well. They just express it, and I think, and amplify it in different ways than we've seen historically. And I think it's a huge opportunity. And you see that from every tier. You see that with the mainstream wineries like La Crema, and you see that all the way up to the luxury tier. They're just as engaged. And, you know, I always like to tell people, like, millennials, they're such a huge demographic that we want to understand them, but I think they're telling us who they are quite frequently. And I also like to remind people that millennials are turning 40 next year. They're going to be 40 years old next year, so they're not as young as we I think perceive at times. And we have to know that, like, they are actually investing in more expensive wines. Particularly in California, we have the Silicon Valley. I can tell you right now that those young consumers can absolutely afford a bottle of some of our most high-end brands. And so we have to, again, when I spoke earlier about really vetting where we communicate, how we communicate, and also what those partners look like. And if those are digital content partners, making sure their audience matches the audience that we're trying to reach with our brand. And so we want to make sure we're communicating externally to the media, of course, that traditional channel. It's absolutely relevant still, but also through other avenues to tap those new audiences, and also ensure that we're not ignoring an audience that is a perfect fit for a winery like Freemark Abbey in Napa Valley that has, you know, a $50 US Cabernet, but has wines that are single vineyard that go up to $100 to $200. Those early adopters of Freemark Abbey could very well be some of our best collectors in a few years. So finding those new audiences, engaging with them, and then also realizing that this is a generation that feels very empowered and has a lot of information at their fingertips. So if we're not part of that conversation, and we're not having a conversation with them in that place that they want to have it, I think it's just a missed opportunity. So we work really hard to not miss a beat when it comes to those alternative communication channels.
Yes, I think that it's very interesting, the strategy of having so many different teams working, you know, on each brand, because it's not so common. I think it's something pretty unique.
Yeah.
How many of you are in the Jackson
group?
family, in the all business of Jackson family?
The entire company?
Yeah, the entire company.
Globally, we're probably 2,500 people.
Okay.
How many?
Okay. A big
Yeah.
number.
So I don't know if that feels bigger or smaller than what you thought.
2,500.
2,500.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
think we are
spread out
800.
across the globe, it's around 2,000 to 2,500 people.
We as a group, we are about 700 with all the brands.
With all the brands.
Yeah. But the brands, all brands are managed by a group of people who are separate, and they are responsible for their brand.
Mr. Geddes, we have so many people owning sellers and working in the marketing and communication of wine connected right now. And today we have to leave messages to these people, even because, you know, we're going to face another wave of this terrible emergency. We have to find new ideas, new strategies, but we have to have models to try to improve. And I think that it would be very interesting if you would give a message to this new generation of people working in an environment that you gave a big contribution to build.
Yeah, in an environment which is very tough now, especially the smaller businesses who are selling mostly to small shops and restaurants. They can't go to the supermarket business. They can do on the online sales, yes, but unknown wines is very difficult to. It's just on price. And so you need a critical mass. And the critical mass is essential also for the finance to be able to communicate. Many small companies just started from, you know, producing wine and putting a label. I think that is going to be very difficult now if it's for small companies. Unless they are right at the top, it's very, very, very difficult. What we have seen during the pandemic on the B2C is that the B2C increased enormously during the pandemic, but the average price actually went down. And when we started moving out, they went down on sales and kept a low price. So sales of great wines, unless it's a direct mailing, it doesn't really happen very easily on the online. People want to understand the wine, they want to taste the wine, and that's what the restaurants have been doing. Now, without the top restaurants, it's a much tougher job. So if any of the wines, unless you're really an icon, and icons, they're very rare.
Different game.
It's a different game, yeah. It's a difficult game. It's a difficult game.
Difficult and different. What do you think to do with Jackson Family Wine, Kristen, to face this new part of the emergency, because everything is reblocking practically. We have terrible news every day about different countries. We're just seeing that in China, it looks like, you know, they're living
doing well. China is doing
well.
very well.
Today we did some tastings with a connection to Shanghai and Shenzhen, and they were incredibly full. Yes. And we had requests for tons of places. We had a room for 35 people because we did the same in Italy, you know, with the same restrictions, but they are living practically normally, it looks like.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it's a great idea to.
There are very few new cases. Actually, they say they don't have new cases.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can trust everything they say, but that's what.
Yeah. Do you have, Kristen?
They've been the first to come into the pandemic, but the first to get out.
Yeah.
But that would be impossible in Europe. The things they've done, closing everybody
yes, of course,
in the house, would be impossible in Europe and impossible in the United States. I mean,
of course. It's a
different system. I mean,
different people. Different minds. Different minds. Kristen, what are the strategies you're preparing for these next months? in which everything is uncertain, because the worst part of the business right now is that, you know, everything is uncertain. It's impossible, you know, to do a preview.
Is the worst thing.
Even you know, in our world, in the world of events and fairs, we have so much to do for the promotion in the first months of the year. Normally, you know, imagine that Milan Wine Week is the first international wine event 2020, which is incredible, you know, and we are in October. So we have to do something both in two directions.
Everything was cancelled.
Yes, of course. We have to do something to deal with these bumps, both in the B2B and into B2C direction. So we launched this digital platform for the masterclasses, for the tastings, with different rooms. We will redo this in February, giving the opportunity to many international, not just Italian brands, to do a promotion in between 7 and 10 countries. But I think that each of us needs to have a very strong strategy. What are your strategies, both in the two directions, so in the B2C and in the B2B direction?
Yeah, so I think uncertainty, you nailed it right on the head. I think we were hoping to be out of a little bit of this much sooner. So it was a good wake up call to us that we probably need to be preparing for a lot longer. So from a business perspective, I spoke to a little bit of it before. It's pivoting channels. So we were really lucky to have really strong retail partners. So we've moved a lot of our business that was traditionally in the restaurants. We moved it to those retail partners we trust. And I'm really happy. Giovanni brought up a really good point earlier about price protection. That's something that you don't want something like a pandemic or any tragedy to force you to make decisions around pricing for your brands. Because I think protecting that integrity of your brand is so important. And if you discount or your partners discount too dramatically, it devalues that brand. And I think that's particularly important on the luxury level, particularly when you're working with your customers or collectors. So, you know, working with those retail partners that we have a great relationship with that will protect price and continue to uphold the value of our brands and our wines. And then moving a lot more of our business, we've redeveloped a lot of our e-commerce websites. So selling wine directly on our winery websites has been proven really successful, and that's made up for a lot of the losses we've seen in some of the restaurant areas. We also, you know, we have to be innovative, right? So we actually had been toying around with an idea for a few years now about potentially launching our own online retail sales site. And so when the pandemic came, we basically just decided to do it. And so we launched a website called yourwinestore.com. It sells all of our winery brands, our wines, highlights different regions and special offers. And that we control that 100%. And it's been super successful, and it's opened a whole new sales channel for us. But I don't know that we would have done that. I don't know if we ever would have pulled the trigger on that. And I think being innovative and not shying away from some of those business ideas that maybe in the past didn't make much sense, but they absolutely do now. And then investing more. We've invested a lot more and pivoted a lot of our budget to digital marketing. So a lot of our budget is now moved to digital marketing, mainly because there's a lot of areas of our marketing that have gone away. So in-person events in the United States are not happening. At least for the foreseeable future. But I was actually very excited to see you all put this together, because yes, it's the first it's the first international wine event. And so I think I would love to see other, you know, wine organizations really look at this as a model and realize we have to continue to bring together people from different backgrounds, different geographies, and have these really important conversations around the industry and do tastings. So I'm hopeful that this kind of innovation continues. And then from the consumer perspective, yeah, it's just making sure we have a strong point of view. We're always dedicated. We never compromise on that quality of our product. I think there's still a level of discovery going on. So while the brands that are well known and trusted are doing great, and they're doing well because they're established, I think there's still a space for discovery of new brands. They just have to have they have to have quality, and they have to have a really strong point of view. And then you have to be able to communicate that point of view into new channels. Don't just go those traditional channel routes. Embrace new audiences. If you know that your brand or your wine will fit into a particular lifestyle niche, whether that be, you have a really strong story like we do with many of our wineries, but one in particular, Cambria, where female leadership is a huge part of our story since back in 1987 when it was founded. We have worked really hard to spearhead partnerships, events, digital events, virtual events. We've done digital and social marketing campaigns. We've done fundraising campaigns to raise money for women's organizations. And all of that has created a larger audience for us to introduce our wine into. And those are people that might not have known about Cambria before that. So that's what we're really doing with the consumer side. We're expanding our reach, breaking into new audiences through partnerships and through other means of communication. And then, on the business side, we're moving and shifting how and where we sold wines traditionally until we're able to, help bring the restaurants back to where they're going to be. And we're hopeful, but we don't know what that landscape will look like for quite some time. I think we're all very prepared for the fact it's going to take years to recover from an economic perspective in markets all over the world. So we're hunkering down.
Yeah. Mr. Geddes, can you give us maybe any news about ideas that you have for the future, for the next future? Any anticipation?
No, it's, as I said, we're going to release some of the archivio storico wines, and
yeah,
they will go. But we decided not to do next year because of the pandemic.
Yeah,
and we'll usually only do it through Sotheby's. And the auction houses have a very tough time now.
Yeah.
So it's probably going to be 22.
Okay.
We have a lot of things we're working on, but there's no new wines. I mean, it's just doing things better, even better than what we're doing now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presence. Thank you very much, Kristen, for joining us. We hope to see you in Milan soon, and next year to be with Mr. Geddes all together, having a special toast.
I used to come to Napa at least 3 times a year.
Yeah. You come here, and then I'll go there.
We exchange. We exchange.
You have a good property, and very nice property called Arcena.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you been there?
Yeah.
Have you been there?
I've been there quite a few times, actually. I'm very fortunate that I've been over almost every year until recently. So I get to Italy typically once or twice a year.
Wonderful.
So this has been very tough because I'm usually on the road half the time, visiting New York, like you, obviously the big media markets, London, but then also visiting our actual wineries in Italy and France and Australia and South Africa. So it's been really hard. It's beautiful here in wine country. Napa Valley and Sonoma County are gorgeous, but I love the Jackson family portfolio because it is international. So not to be able to be with you today in Milan is heartbreaking, but I'm so honored to have been asked to join you today.
Okay, let's exchange emails so we can...
Yes, definitely.
Hopefully next year. Thank you very much.
Next year, fingers crossed.
Absolutely, stronger than ever. Thank you very much to Giovanni Geddes Da Filicaja and to Kristen Reitzell.